Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews of just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're going to be taking a look at Music Racer for the Nintendo Switch. And this game is amazing for the absolutely otherworldly combination of rhythms games and racing games, but it's also kind of amazing to see how when you actually put the two gaming mechanics together, how it can succeed and fail in certain areas for certain reasons. But that's not to say Music Racer isn't a good time. In all honesty, I was glued to it when I put it in, but it might be good to kind of check your expectations at the door before you dive in, because otherwise you just might not get the most out of the experience. As you might have guessed, from a game that combines both the popular genres of a rhythm game and a racing game, there really is absolutely no need for a story, and accordingly you get absolutely no story. There's not even a hint of a backstory. But you do start off with a handful of cars and a whole bunch of unlockable vehicles, as well as access to every single one of the 20 some odd songs that the game has to offer. And if you're thinking because of the genre of somewhat outrun style classic racing, no, these aren't little thrown together chiptunes. And as a matter of fact, some of them are quite recognizable as very popular digital artists. But we'll save the visuals and the audio for a little bit later in the review. Right now for the actual gameplay, how it carries out as an outrun style racing and rhythm game is to a point much more simple than I would have expected. While playing the game, you're limited to a left and right input command, either through your left joystick or a D-pad or directional buttons. And that's pretty much it. So you actually can play, probably for the first time in the history of the world, a rhythm game with only one hand. Because more or less, regardless of which song, which track, or which vehicle you're playing as, you'll only have to move your vehicle left or right into the appropriate lane to kind of crash into the notes, either as they appear or as they fall down onto the screen. If you're playing in normal mode, there are obstacles as well, and they don't really have much of a detriment to your gameplay or to your score. They just kind of break your streak. But because there's no score multiplier associated with the streak for the points that you earn as spendable currency, unless you're playing in hard mode, there is absolutely no penalty for crashing into just about anything. It will dull the music for just a second, letting you know you've done something you probably shouldn't have. But realistically, as I just mentioned, unless you're playing in hard mode, which pretty much stops your progression in that song if you do impact anything other than a note, there is no penalty. That being said, there are 4 total gaming modes to Music Racer. Normal mode has notes you can collect and things you can run into, whereas the Zen mode has all of the regular notes at the regular speed, but no obstacles. So you can kind of play with a little bit less stress, knowing that you don't have to dodge anything as you play. There is also a cinematic mode with no notes and really nothing to do, but you get to watch your vehicle at any camera angle you choose as it cruises down automatically through the path. And of course, if you really want some punishment, hard mode does give you one shot at finishing the course. But to be honest, unless it's to push a personal best, as there are no online scoreboards or leaderboards, I don't really know why you'd want to. Because every other mode except for the cinematic mode lets you play and collect notes as your spendable currency, which is how you unlock more cars and more levels. And of course, as Music Racer does let you cruise through the entire inventory of available vehicles from the very beginning of the game, I set my sights on the little black and white A86. And you better know, as soon as I unlocked it, all I imagined was running through the streets delivering tofu. And if you get that reference, you're awesome. But probably even more than unlocking the vehicles, unlocking the new racetracks was pretty flippin' awesome. Because every one of them is so new, so unique, and there's so much going on. Which, on a side note, makes it very, very imperative that you do follow the visual seizure warning. Because if you have any issue with flashing lights, this game will not be your friend. Screen shaking can be turned down, and even the camera's distance from your vehicle can be increased. But racing tracks are blinding. Not only are they loopy and throwing you through constant turns, there is no end to the flashing lights, fireworks, explosions, and the incredibly seizure-inducing brilliance of color that's superimposed over the entire gaming experience. And this does pretty much bring us to the visuals portion of the game, as honestly the controls for the game are pretty straightforward and simple. Visually, Music Racer is honestly more than I would have ever expected. It is powerfully beautiful with smooth graphics, and the colors and just the craziness going on was honestly more than I thought would have been worth the price. But the visuals can be and are much more distracting than they need to be for your typical racing or your typical rhythm game. And while some tracks do drop notes down from the sky that give you a bit of maybe a preamble as to where they may appear on the track, with the way the tracks wind and loop, you're actually required to look through the ground or grasp that split second where you're over a hill crest in order to figure out where they are at all. And so unless you have some absolutely god-level attention to detail, sometimes the visuals might not be as amazing for gameplay as they are amazing just to watch. Musically though, as far as the sound package of the game, I was blown away. I'm not exactly a fan of some more industrial techno synth, but many, if not most of the tracks are ones that I actually do have on some of my stations for working out or just generally living my life. And it was awesome to see them superimposed into a game like this. And while we have already kind of mentioned or at least hinted at some of the game's critiques, there are some that need to be raised up as kind of a general awareness to make sure that you have the appropriate expectations before diving in. Because generally it's only through expecting way too much of a game that we're really dissatisfied or disappointed. And so first and foremost would probably be the challenge level of Music Racer. If you're going into it as an Outrun style retro racing game, it's not going to be what you expect, because there aren't any other racers and there's really not much maneuvering you even have to do. But in the sense of the control scheme, it really is like a classic racer. You only get to use your directional keys and only with the left thumbstick or the left hand directional buttons. And so in that sense, part of the difficulty for the game actually stems from being able to use only one hand to navigate your vehicle back and forth between all of the game's lanes to try and get the notes as quickly as possible. And yeah, that is pretty difficult. The visuals also add to the difficulty as the race tracks, almost like Mario Kart's Rainbow Road, swoop and loop and are semi-transparent, and the notes only appear a small increment in front of you as you progress down the track. And as I found out through unlocking all of the tracks and trying to play a few songs over and over just to get a good comparison, certain songs and certain tracks are much more conducive to actually playing for high scores. But were all of the songs awesome to play? Yes. And were all of the tracks fun and interesting? Also yes. And probably the best part is I got to race through a retro video game aesthetic on a light cycle. And so if you haven't quite caught it yet, a lot of the game's themes, especially in the vehicles that you can ride, even though they have kind of renamed some of them, such as the Lorian, are actually pretty classic pop culture references that are perfectly suited for this retro theme. And so taking a step back and looking at Music Racer as an entire experience, I did enjoy it. And I will most certainly be playing it again. But is it my favorite rhythm game? No. Is it my favorite racing game? Very much no. But is it an absolutely incredible attempt at genre blending that I hope some other development team takes even further? Heck yes. But that does pretty much bring us to the end of the review of Music Racer now on the Nintendo Switch, so if you enjoyed the review, or especially if you found it helpful, feel free to throw us a like or a comment to show your support, and don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. Because as you can see, there are new and really unique indie games coming out literally every single day. And so whether it's an easy hard pass or an absolutely unforgettable gem, chances are if it's on the Switch, you're gonna find out about it right here. But anyway, this has been The Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.